had everything. A love that seemed eternal. A life built with dreams and plans. But what happens when family becomes the stage for a betrayal so unimaginable that it destroys every pillar of your existence? This is the story of how trust was annihilated and loyalty brutally murdered. In 2014, at 26 years old, Daniel, was 2 years into my marriage with Sophia, my soulmate since college. At 27, she was the most stunning woman I had ever known. Our plans were simple: travel, consolidate our lives, and only then think about children. I supported her in everything, including her master's degree, always seeking her happiness. However, Sophia's mother, Mrs. Helena, never accepted me, distilling her contempt at every opportunity. Sophia had a sister, Clara, married to Mark. I tried to ignore the family tensions and focused on our future. Little did I know that this apparent harmony was the facade for a nightmare that was about to unfold, revealing the true face of those I trusted most. The calm I thought I was living in soon dissipated. 1 year after our wedding, Mrs. Helena suffered a fall. Nothing serious, but enough to keep her hospitalized for a few days. Sophia was inconsolable, dedicating herself entirely to her mother. This event, seemingly trivial, was the first link in a chain of events that would drag us into an abyss. Time passed, and life seemed to resume its course, until Sophia's parents' 30th wedding anniversary party. There, 2 shocking revelations were made. First, Clara, Sophia's sister, had been struggling for 5 long years to get pregnant. The pain of her infertility was a silent burden, an anguish that consumed her. Then, with a choked voice and tears in her eyes, Mrs. Helena made her confession: the burning desire to be a grandmother. "A fall could be my end, and who knows when that could happen?" she uttered, her words loaded with an urgency that hit Sophia hard, making her break down emotionally. Upon returning home, the shadow of those revelations loomed over us. I naively tried to ignore it, a mistake that would cost me dearly. Months passed in a tense silence, until an urgent phone call from Sophia alarmed me. Her voice, heavy with anguish, informed me that she was at the hospital. It wasn't her, but Clara. In a desperate act, Clara had tried to take her own life. The infertility and her mother's words about the desire for a grandchild had been the trigger for deep depression. I rushed to the hospital. There I found Mrs. Helena, with her cold, accusatory gaze, Mark and Sophia. My mother-in-law, without mincing words, blamed me for Clara's suicide attempt. According to her, my selfishness in not wanting children yet was the root of the problem. 2 days later, Clara was discharged with a prescription for antidepressants. That same day, a family meeting was called. The topic? Grandchildren. I suggested adoption as a viable alternative for Clara and Mark, who had the financial means. An uncomfortable silence filled the room. Mrs. Helena stared at me and rejected the idea, claiming that an adopted child is not our own blood. The conversation died there, and we returned home in a heavy atmosphere. The following weeks were strange. Clara and Mark began to frequent our house with unusual regularity. I heard them whispering, but as I approached, silence settled. Sophia's behavior also changed drastically. She became secretive with her phone, distant, and our intimacy diminished. I tried to get closer, but she evaded me. Then came July 5th. I arrived home from work and found a fleet of cars parked outside. Upon entering, the scene was surreal. My in-laws, Clara, Mark, and Sophia, all in the living room, with serious expressions. "Daniel, sit down. We need to talk," Sophia said. I sat down, confused. Before I could ask, Mrs. Helena intervened. "What solution can you give us?" I didn't understand. "About my grandchildren," she completed. I suggested in vitro fertilization, but her face expressed pure disgust. "I have another solution," she declared, and the world began to spin. The air in the room was charged with an almost palpable tension. I looked at Sophia, seeking an explanation, but she averted her gaze, fixing it on Clara and then on her mother. Clara sketched a smile, while Mark exhibited an arrogant posture, a smile that turned into a sneer, loaded with a superiority that disgusted me. The silence dragged on, and I waited for Sophia to say something, anything, to break that suffocating atmosphere. Suddenly, Sophia's voice burst out, cutting, "Idiot! Say something." I was stunned, not understanding. Mrs. Helena intervened, with a forced elegance, trying to calm her daughter. "Darling, as you know, poor Clara has been cursed with the impossibility of giving us grandchildren, this joy of motherhood that she cannot experience." Sophia interrupted her, explaining that they had analyzed all options, mentioning the risks of surrogacy and the possible genetic and hereditary problems that could arise generations later. Mark added that surrogacy was expensive and unfeasible for them, in addition to the expenses a baby would demand. "So, what do you propose?" I asked. My voice choked with confusion and a terrible premonition. Mrs. Helena's answer hit me like lightning, leaving me breathless. "Since you refuse to have children, Sophia will get pregnant by Mark." I swallowed hard, trying to process those words. Was it a joke? A nightmare? But Mrs. Helena continued, her voice cold and calculating. "We understand that you don't want to take care of the baby. Don't worry. When it's born, it will be registered in Clara and Mark's name." She continued with a series of religious arguments, citing the church's prohibition and her desire to prevent her grandchild from being condemned to hell. "Children are not products, they are not made in a laboratory. They must be conceived with love, the fruit of a couple. In other words, through coitus," she explained, with a disturbing conviction. Before she could continue, I abruptly stood up, my voice exploding in a shout I rarely allowed. "Absolutely not." I looked at Sophia, who alternated between confusion and fear. Mrs. Helena stared at me defiantly, as if expecting a different reaction. Mark approached, trying to put his hand on my shoulder. "Don't touch me," I snarled, rage boiling in my veins. Mrs. Helena insisted. "I want a grandchild." It was then that, in a fit of desperation, I said, "All right, I'll give her a grandchild. We'll try to conceive next week." My mother-in-law intervened again. "We respect your decision not to have children yet. I understand you are young and still have the desire to explore. Therefore, Mark will be responsible for this. Clara agrees that her child must be conceived in the act of love. Therefore, it will be between Sophia and Mark." Upon hearing those words, I shouted again, "You crazy old witch!" Everyone was startled by my reaction. Mrs. Helena began to cry crocodile tears, and Mark and Clara approached her. Sophia looked at me and yelled, asking how I could say that. Mark came towards me and, I remember clearly, said, "Come on, it'll be fun." At that instant, I landed a punch so hard on Mark's face that he fell to the ground. Clara and Sophia's screams echoed through the house. In a fit of fury, I ordered them to leave my house, locking myself in the room. I could hear the last shouts and the sound of cars leaving. Minutes later, Sophia burst into the room, furious, complaining that I had offended her mother. She ignored the fact that they were trying to convince me to accept that my wife would sleep with another man. Sophia didn't speak to me for the rest of the day. The next morning, I found her in the kitchen, her face swollen from crying. She called me immature for not understanding the situation and mentioned that her mother was in critical condition. I ignored her, told her to take a taxi, and left. I spent the day with my best friend, Andre, who supported me, calling the situation a farce and blaming Mrs. Helena. He suggested I distance myself from that toxic family. Upon returning home, Sophia was desolate. She said her mother was hospitalized and in serious condition. I said I cared little, and she broke down. I felt a pang of remorse and apologized. She just repeated that her mother only wanted a grandchild. I suggested she wait another year, but she insisted. "You don't understand, Clara is still depressed. I'm afraid she'll try to hurt herself again." Silence defeated me. "All right," I said. "We can try to have a child soon." That decision threw me off balance. I was young, I wanted to travel, and a child was an immense responsibility. But the happiness on Sophia's face made me give in. The months that followed were strangely calm. Sophia seemed more affectionate, no longer hiding her phone. Mrs. Helena, to my surprise, apologized and said she understood my decision. I was happy and even planned a surprise. A long trip to Canada. On March 6th, I returned home with the tickets ready. The house was empty. In the bedroom, I found a note from Sophia. The words danced before my eyes, each one a blow to my chest. Daniel, you see that nothing in our relationship changes. I love you more than ever, and I know you love me too. My mother has become more affectionate with you. She appreciates you in her own way. However, Clara cannot be happy, and I know that the guilt of not giving her a grandchild is destroying her. I didn't tell you, but I know you will understand. You've changed a lot these past few months, and I know you are mature enough and love me too much. My parents, Clara and Mark, will do what we planned 6 months ago. Today we are leaving town. I will get pregnant by Mark. I won't tell you where we are because I know that you and I should not suffer stressful situations, nor Mark. Clara told me he gets nervous and maybe we won't conceive on the first try, so we'll be away for a month. Don't worry about looking for us. I'll come back when I'm pregnant. This doesn't change our relationship, we'll pretend nothing happened. No one in the family knows and that's how it will stay. Just between us. Upon finishing reading, sadness and humiliation flooded me. I cried, I don't deny it, but the pain soon turned into a cold indifference. I realized the manipulation, the way Sophia and her mother persuaded me to be the obedient husband. But I wouldn't allow it. I called Andre, told him everything. He supported me. That weekend, my hatred for Sophia and her family only grew. I decided on my plan. I bought tickets to Canada, sold my car, took out a loan with Andre. I took Sophia's cell phone and left, without looking back. I resigned from my job, cut all ties. 3 weeks later, in Canada, a notification on Sophia's phone caught my attention. It was a family WhatsApp group. Baby. Clara had sent a message. It finally happened, family. After more than 20 attempts, we'll finally have a grandchild. A photo of Mark smiling and next to him Sophia in bed, in lingerie. Then, a photo of a positive pregnancy test. Sadness hit me, but I was too far away to care. For days later, I was already looking for a job. My engineering degree and fluency in 2 languages guaranteed me a job as a stock clerk. A week later, I received a message from Sophia on my new phone. Love, I'm home. Everything worked out and I'm pregnant. Come soon. I need to tell you something. I ignored her. Messages and calls multiplied, from Sophia, Clara, Mark, and even the old witch. My father called me, worried. I told him the truth, and he, incredulous at first, ended up believing me. I asked him to block Sophia. I turned off my phone for 15 days, bought a new one. I set my social media to private, but didn't block them, just hid them. Andre told me that Sophia looked for him, but he dismissed her with a cutting remark. You could have asked him while you were having fun with your brother-in-law. When I turned my phone back on, there were over 100 messages and calls. Most from Sophia, begging for forgiveness. Daniel, please, I still love you. This means nothing. I want to give you your first child. This is for my sister. Her messages were full of pleas and crying audios. There were also messages from my mother-in-law, reproaching me, saying I was irresponsible and that my behavior would affect the grandchild. Sophia was losing weight, hospitalized for a nervous breakdown. I blocked my mother-in-law's number. My father came to live with me in Canada. I got a better job and permanent residency. Sophia continues to send messages. The baby with Mark was born healthy, and I'm happy about that. He's not to blame. Sophia cut ties with her family, blaming them for forcing her. She still tries to find me. I decided to break the silence. I reply to her messages with happy emojis. In her despair, she says she still loves me, but I know that if she truly loved me, she wouldn't have acted this way. One day, I answered a video call from her. My camera was off. She was no longer the beautiful woman I knew. She looked exhausted and aged. She tried to apologize, but I interrupted her. The sum of your actions defines who you are. You made a decision, stepping over me, something you knew I didn't agree with. You confused my love with obedience, and I will not allow that. I am living what I promised you, traveling, but I am doing it alone. Perhaps by now we would be expecting a child, because patience is a virtue that is cultivated. Mrs. Helena didn't die, and I doubt she will anytime soon. I will not give you a divorce even if you try. You will carry this on your conscience forever. As for me, I haven't met anyone, nor will I. I guess actions have consequences. You reap what you sow. I am reaping mine and you are reaping yours. After that, I heard Sophia break down in tears and ended the call. Currently, I live in Montreal, recovering from my past life. Since then, I haven't heard from her. And so, life goes on, with its scars and its lessons. This is my story, a fragment of human complexity, of the pain of betrayal and the resilience that arises from adversity. If this narrative resonated with you, if it made you reflect on trust, family, and the limits of manipulation, leave your like, share this video with those who need to hear this message, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue to bring more stories that touch the soul and provoke thought. Your support is fundamental to strengthen our work and ensure that more voices are heard.